Wall Street just built a $70 a barrel trap designed to permanently drain your savings, and they're using a fake Middle Eastern peace deal to hide it. While the news cheers for stability, financial insiders are quietly cornering the global oil supply to make sure your cost of living never drops again. And your bank account is the collateral. This isn't diplomacy. It's an economic sleight of hand happening among global leaders. While the media calls it a victory for trade, institutional insiders are aggressively hoarding energy assets, because this invisible price floor guarantees your gas, groceries, and utility bills are about to permanently spike, funneling your wealth into an unregulated shadow market. To see the scam, you have to look at the one physical chokehold the media is hiding from you. The public story is a masterpiece of misdirection. Secure the shipping lanes, calm the markets, and trade goes back to normal. The talking heads are taking a victory lap. Supply chain risk gone, inflation finally dead. But if inflation is dead, why isn't Wall Street selling their oil? Because behind closed doors, the physical reality of the energy grid tells a terrifying secret. The illusion is just the bait. The real trap is a single number the banks don't want you tracking. Oil isn't a commodity, it's leverage. Even with tensions supposedly paused, U.S. crude has stubbornly refused to drop below that $70 floor. Why? Because the global market is stretched so paper-thin that the West reportedly needs unregulated shadow crude to keep flowing. If it stops, supply collapses. The market knows it and the suppliers know it. But why 70? Why not 50 or 100? Because 70 isn't a random number, it's a calculated baseline. In the energy trade, there's a boiling frog zone. Below $60 a barrel, U.S. oil companies collapse overnight and entire oil-backed nations go broke. Above 90, people stop driving, factories pause, and a recession crashes the price back down. But hovering between 70 and 80, that's the sweet spot, high enough to generate trillions for the suppliers, but just low enough that you, the consumer, slowly absorb the pain without ever rioting. It bleeds you, but it keeps you working. Holding that floor takes more than a handshake. It takes an enforcement mechanism, and that mechanism is floating completely off the grid. Enter the squeeze. This wasn't a truce. It was a compliance deal forced by shipping leverage. Right now, a massive shadow fleet, reportedly moving over 1.5 million barrels a day entirely under the radar, is operating untouched. How do you hide a 1,000-foot supertanker? You don't. You fake its data. These ships reportedly spoof their GPS trackers to appear in one ocean while physically loading crude in another, erasing their paper trail. If the system ever enforced the rules and seized these ghost ships, supply would vanish, gas would explode, and the Western economy would crash. So politicians look the other way, knowing the exact date this hidden tax hits your local supermarket. Tell me below, is that incompetence or is it deliberate? But to see how lethal this trap is for your savings, you have to look 50 years into the past. The elites learned a painful lesson in the 1973 oil shock. Back then, they choked off supply too fast. Gas lines, double-digit inflation, visible panic, and accidentally forced the West to build nuclear power. So this time, there's no sudden shock. They're building a silent, permanent price floor, a slow, invisible bleed of your wealth that no one fights back against. The 1970s crisis was solved by central banks hiking interest rates. That won't work now, because you cannot print more oil. Which brings us to why Wall Street is really hoarding. They aren't storing barrels in Manhattan skyscrapers that are they're hoarding the infrastructure and the paper. While the media distracts you with AI hype, elite hedge funds are quietly buying up the actual pipes and ships that bring energy to your town. They aren't just betting on the price of oil, they're buying the physical choke points. They know that if the shadow fleet keeps supply tight and the peace deal keeps the price above 70, it becomes a zero-risk bet, a guaranteed margin. Retail investors gamble in a fragile stock market while the smart money quietly buys the baseline of human civilization. And here is where the knife twists directly into your wallet. By accepting this invisible oil cartel, the market just greenlit a permanent $70 floor. The era of cheap energy is officially dead. This isn't just pain at the pump, it's a tax on everything. Your heating bill, your Amazon deliveries, your groceries. When shipping costs double, corporations don't eat the loss, they pass the bill to you. But the bleeding doesn't stop at the checkout, it hits your mortgage. If energy keeps inflation sticky, the Federal Reserve can't cut rates, so the dream of a 3% mortgage is dead. It hits your retirement because your retirement requires cheap energy to survive. And even that is just a side effect. The true danger is the end game being built with those profits. But here's the fatal secret the mainstream won't touch. This deal doesn't secure global supply, it restructures it. By giving the shadow fleet a free pass, the system is tolerating an unregulated, state-backed supply chain that now dictates global inflation. The billions siphoned from the Western middle class aren't vanishing into a vacuum. They're reportedly funding rival economies, fortifying foreign central banks, and building an independent financial system that doesn't need the West to survive. They aren't building a stable market. They're building a structural chokehold. And Wall Street is hoarding energy stocks because they know exactly what happens next. The rules of the economy are being rewritten by the people who control the physical choke points, while you're left holding devaluing paper. The system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed, just not for you. Because oil isn't the only resource they're monopolizing. Next time, I'm exposing the quiet cartel quietly cornering the water that every AI microchip needs to exist. Click the video on your screen right now to see how they're pulling it off, and protect your wealth.